allegedly showed officials delaying warnings to the public to avoid panic. Now, that's public record. You can look that up. So, if animals might be trying to warn us about something, are you going to wait? Or are you going to just hang around and hope that FEMA sends you a postcard? I'd like to know if you're noticing any of this lately.
And by the way, this is South Carolina today. Yeah, the clouds are falling out of the sky. Even the weather people themselves are coming out and saying that the flooding is 70% above what's normal. Boston and Indiana has cars floating in the water right now. I'm sorry, but does no one remember the doomsday map that was acquired by divination? It was for the year 2025. That's weird, right? Surely we know that something is up. But all the sleepy people around us, somewhere around Korea, Mexico's been flooding for 3 days in a row. Everything I'm showing you is from the last 24 hours. And of course, now out of habit, I look at the Schumann frequency, and what do you know? It is beaming. Headaches, no sleep, ringing ears, zoned out. You feel it? But did you know that every single day new fires are being started somehow in the United States? This is Colorado. This is new in California. I'll let that play while I talk for a minute. Do you think it's possible the Schumann frequency is actually picking up something else? You know?
After the devastating floods in Texas, it's been revealed that cloud seeding technology has been utilized. Is there even a remote possibility that this influenced those terrible events? First, they said we were crazy for saying they're controlling the weather and spraying chemicals in our skies. Now they are admitting that they are controlling the weather and spraying chemicals in our skies, but that it's not causing any harm. Okay, we are doing it, but it's fun. Is that right, Autopen? Yeah, it's good for the sky. Okay, call me crazy, I don't care, but I'll go ahead and say it. Weather modification and geoengineering is deadly and dangerous. My bill will ban weather modification and geoengineering. The government and companies who profit off these practices don't get to control our weather because we are all affected by it. We aren't lab rats, and weather is not a controlled environment. Well, that seems like a perfectly reasonable submission to the idea of an all-powerful God that would control meteorology and the cosmos as a whole. Do you see how rationalism leads to maximal control for humankind and human institutions, and that human beings are inherently flawed and fallen and somehow will always gravitate towards sin, brokenness, and crazy weather experimentation?
We have two massively sketchy things happening right now. There is the explosion at the LA Sheriff's Department where 3 people have passed away. And right now, as we speak, the Oregon fire is reaching the mega fire category and barely anyone's talking about it.
Military since enemy number 1 is drones. Especially could be doing EM testing near White Sands missile range, and sure enough I pull up a notice to airman and there is a GPS interference warning for these dates. So electromagnetic testing can include the same kind of tech that the Alaskan musical instrument works with. And no, this is not sci-fi or conspiracy. This is very well documented. And there's not just one musical instrument. Other places have theirs too. But what does the musical instrument do? It sends focused radio waves into the ionosphere. That is the layer of the atmosphere that affects GPS, satellite signals, radio waves, which is why I love learning about it, and sometimes even weather indirectly. The military studies this layer because controlling or jamming signals obviously gives a tactical edge. The ionosphere is connected to the weather layer below it, like an energetic ceiling. So if you heat or disturb it, you can change how jet streams or moisture flows behave. That doesn't mean you can create a storm, but you can nudge one or stall or intensify a storm.
Just look at how long this has been going on.
And here's what most people don't realize. When you inject energy into the ionosphere, it doesn't just disappear, it lingers and creates localized heating, which in turn creates gravity waves. And those can move downward into the stratosphere and troposphere, where weather is forming. Those waves can affect storms days later, and that's not speculation. This is shown in peer-reviewed studies like Prickrell et al., which linked auroral disturbances to floods days later. Let's look at a possible connection. Solar activity can affect storms days later. So one can infer that anything charging or heating the ionosphere could affect storms days later. We also saw this dramatic anomaly in the Schumann resonance. I've done videos on that, see my playlist. This does not match normal, typical Schumann patterns, and it is within the operational window of the GPS disruption we saw in the Notice to Airman. And the timing midnight to 4 a.m., that's not Mother Nature timing, but it kind of is the military. Here's where I get some major anxiety. I follow the plane, and it's circling exactly over Ruidoso. And I line up this town that had devastating floods 5 days later, right over the center of the Notice to Airman. The balance down here. I did grab a couple of other flights in case those of you living in these areas had or have extreme weather events in the days following. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the comments.